so glad to talk to you today about inflammation and stress. But first, we wanted to introduce, this is actually our first official podcast. Yeah?
It's happening, guys.
Yeah. So our podcast is called Grit and Grace. So for those of you that know us, you might be able to guess who's who. But Christy is more the grit in the podcast. So her ex-Marine self.
Yep.
And so then I'm going to kind of buffer Christy's grit with some grace. And so hence the name, but our real goal is just to meet you where you are and bring up topics that have to do with health, wellness, mindset, the things that both of our businesses, my practice and Christy's business, Breaking Barriers, really stand for. So we're excited about the future of that.
Yes. Super excited, but today we are going to talk about stress and inflammation and why it's keeping you bloated, brain fog. I mean, there's so many things that it's doing to your body, and we want to address that. I mean, our goal is always to wade through that mud that you're constantly going through of all the things that are being brought in from social media. TikTok is running the world right now, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Bethany and I always want to team up, and we asked you guys earlier what you want to know about. But the first thing we wanted to talk about was inflammation, because it's chronic. It's happening to everybody, and we see it. Everybody's feeling it. They're seeing it in their body, and we want to help address that. And we want to show you the connection of what you're putting in your body and doing to your body so that you can combat and get in charge of what's going on. So guys, this is relevant, it's essential, it's information that you need.
Yeah, so it's not about a diet or a detox, you know, everybody's into the next quick fix, but it really is about day-to-day decision making, about how we fuel our body, how we rest, how we take care of our body, and it truly affects every body system. So it affects our metabolism, our hormones, our gut, all of those things. And so we're gonna kind of break that down for you. So what is really going on when you feel stressed? So stress is not just physical. It is mental, it's emotional, it's environmental. So all of these factors impact our body systems. And so signs that you might be stuck in that stress mode are that you are exhausted, but you still feel wired. So this is like the classic patient or client for Christy that they come in and maybe they're sleeping terribly, but they feel wired at the same time. And so you may feel constantly bloated, inflamed. That is the gut implications from stress. And then you can't sleep, you sleep too much, or you don't sleep enough. You're craving sugar or salt, which we'll dive into, maybe hair thinning, cold hands, feet. And all of these things are signs of cortisol dysregulation. So cortisol is a stress hormone that actually is very beneficial when it is balanced the right way. But if those levels get too high or they don't peak at the right time of day, then you can see stalled fat loss, you can see fatigue, mood swings. So it's not just about removing stress, but it's also about building resilience in our daily choices.
Resilience.
Yeah, it is a good word. So implications for our body when we're stressed. So common question that patients have is, why am I accumulating central belly fat? And so this is not just from overeating. Central belly fat is actually a sign of inflammation and that cortisol dysregulation. So high cortisol leads to high insulin, which puts our body in a storage mode. So all the time I have people come to me and say, I really haven't changed anything. My diet's the same, eating the same, but all of a sudden I have this accumulation of central belly fat. And that is very much linked to those high cortisol, high insulin levels. So most people don't realize that the real driver for cellular inflammation is stress.
Yeah. So now we're going to define what inflammation is. So inflammation, it's a natural response to stress, to injury, to toxins, things that's going on in your body and even outside of your environment, and also to intense exercise. So when you do those things and you're bringing things into your body, they can be short term. That's acute inflammation. And that's going to be healing and recovery. So when we exercise, because I'm the grit guys, so when we do exercise, we're breaking down our muscles, we're doing stress on our body, but it builds it back up to be stronger and healthier. The problem is 93% of us are walking around chronically inflamed. Chronically inflamed, meaning it lasts 6+ months. You're walking around for possibly years with joint pain, brain fog, gut issues, hormone imbalance. And that's a problem because so many health issues is stemming from that. So many things starts there. So if we can get that now, that's why we constantly say it's never too late. But you got to have the knowledge to know what's going on. And the thing is, it shows up in your skin too. Your body talks to you. It's telling you things. And when you become aware of what it's saying, and you're able to say, oh, I didn't do anything to my knees. Why do my knees hurt all the time? Maybe your body's trying to tell you something. Oh, why am I having these dry patches? And why is my eczema working? Or why do I have bumps on my skin? That is your body talking. Your skin is your largest organ, and it's also going to tell you things of what's going on.
So, like Christy said, inflammation is often the root when we look at various symptoms. And so I like to break it down like this. So inflammation is going to be manifested somewhere when you're inflamed. And so you may see it in a specific organ. So for example, if you have Hashimoto's, there's been several questions on our Facebook feeds about Hashimoto's. So that is inflammation of your thyroid. If you have polycystic ovary syndrome, that is the manifestation of inflammation at the ovaries and in those hormone pathways. Inflammation of the brain, cognitive decline, and dementia, which is on the rise, very scary, but it's due to the environmental factors in our diet that we're going to discuss. Inflammation of metabolic systems, very much on the rise. That's insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, driven very much by stress and what we put in our body through food. And then inflammation of the gut, so that could be manifested through irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, and autoimmune flares. So inflammation will manifest somewhere.
It's scary. And just like I said, inflammation is supposed to be acute. Like when we do things and take things into our body, it's supposed to be able to handle it. And it's when we have so much, it's inundated and it can't keep up with what's going on. So that's the big key picture, guys. But so let's talk about triggers, things that we're doing to our body that we can stop, control, eliminate. We may possibly use the word or minimize what's happening. The first thing I'm going to talk about is seed oils. Seed oils, when I say seed oils, it is canola oil, it is corn oil, it is cottonseed, it is sunflower oil. Those things are on everything. I don't get the word everything, but if you have something in a box or a bag, read the ingredients, and it's mind-boggling how many things contain seed oils. And the sad thing is, as a trainer and as a fitness person, I get so many people to send me healthy foods. You know, it's been deemed healthy, it's going to help you lose weight, it's a collagen, it's something. And I always ask, what's the ingredients? And it is amazing that the first ingredient is sometimes sunflower oil. And people don't realize that that is causing inflammation and it's doing harm to our body. And the thing about it is when you bring a seed oil into your body, or any type of oil, it goes into the cells. It goes into your cellular, where your mitochondria is at, that's where your energy and everything is built in the cells. And so when you bring that in, it takes over 800 days. Over 800 days for your body to detox and get it out. So when you say you are what you eat, what are you choosing to be? I mean, are you a French fry that's baked in or cooked in vegetable oil, or are you a fresh avocado that is a good oil that's going to give you the proper source of energy? And another thing that is the sad thing, that we are eating way too much processed foods. We are eating out of boxes and bags. We're not eating real single ingredient food. So I've always used the analogy of eat as close to the ground as you can. So meaning, if you get a potato, eat the potato. Don't eat the potato chip. It's away from the ground, and it's been touched by man, and it's been filled with things that make you want to eat more of it. And it's filled with so many things that's going to cause inflammation in your body. And I understand, it's quick. It is, you're under time constraints. But, you know, planning ahead and understanding what you're doing to your body before you put it in there, it can give you exponential rewards.
Yeah, that's so true. I often think, and even feel personally convicted when trying to eat whole foods, if somebody said, would you eat this poison? You would say no, but that's what we do every day with these highly processed foods and seed oil. So other inflammatory triggers are environmental toxins. So high level, this is like your plasticides, your plastic water bottles, heating things up in plastic. We should really steer away from that because that does interfere with the cell wall. And then another thing that we have total control of and can modify is sleep. So sleep deprivation directly correlates with inflammation. So less than 5 hours of sleep leads to higher blood sugar, lower testosterone, more insulin. So when I'm seeing a male patient that's young, maybe 30s or 40s, and they have low testosterone, I always look at sleep because your body makes testosterone during the REM phase of sleep. And as a society, we sleep less and less, and our sleep is more and more interrupted, but probably because of technology and our habits. So day to day, you should look at sleep hygiene. What are you doing to prepare for bed, to wind down, to turn your brain off so that you can get a good night's sleep? So let's look at the connection. We've talked about inflammation, and let's look at the connection between stress and inflammation. So we'll start with the basics. So like we said earlier, chronic stress is not just in our head. It's not just, oh my goodness, I feel stressed, but your body feels it too. So when we stay stuck in that stress mode, your brain is telling your adrenals to crank out cortisol and adrenaline. So you're like living in a state of fight or flight. And you know, God made adrenaline and cortisol so that we can fight in that state, but we're not meant to stay there long. And that literally like shunts blood to all our vital organs and takes it away from the non-vital places. And so we really have to break that down and go, okay, we can't live in that wired state. So it's called chronic activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And it leads to that elevated cortisol that we talked about, the disrupted blood sugar, the poor sleep, impaired digestion because your blood goes away from your digestive tract to keep you alive. And it results in that systemic inflammation. So chronic stress puts you in fight or flight, leads to that chronic inflammation. And then that's where we see the disruption in body systems that we talked about. The thyroid disorders, the hormone dysregulation, digestive issues, depression, anxiety, all of those things.
Yeah, and so I'm sure you've heard the terminology of when you're stressed or you're angry and someone tells you to take a deep breath. You know what, guys? It's actually some good advice. So she talked about the sympathetic nervous system. I'm going to talk about the parasympathetic nervous system. That is your rest and digest. And so just like we're walking around chronically inflamed, a lot of us are walking around always with that sympathetic nervous system turned on. You're anxious, you're taking shallow breaths, you're just jittery, your heart's racing. That is not good. So some tools that you can do, they're free, is take some deep breaths. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. A lot of us do take shallow breaths and we're not getting oxygen. Oxygen is pretty important, isn't it?
Pretty vital.
Pretty important. And it is 100% will lower your blood pressure. It will get you out of that sympathetic nervous system into that rest and digest. You can even pray. If that is your thing, guys, pray, journal, say things that you're grateful for. Change your mindset, change everything that's going on, and let's go into that rest and digest mode. And the thing is, when you're more in tune with what your body's doing, you can feel when you get to that high stress anxiety mode, and you're like, okay, I need to take a step back, I need to take some deep breaths, and I need to figure out what's going on. So it is not just a to-do list, it is something that can really change what your parasympathetic nervous system needs. Now we're going to talk exercise. Great. Yes. Okay. It's movement. It's not a hardcore workout. I'm not going to tell you to go run a half marathon, run marathons. I don't know. That's not it. But I am going to ask you to just do a self-assessment. How often are you moving? Because the unfortunate thing is a lot of us are tied to that phone. We're sitting on the couch, we're scrolling, we're wasting some time that could be used either doing walks, yoga, exercise, strength training, things that are going to be beneficial for you. And what I want you to think about is exercise is not a punishment for calories you burn, or I ate a bad meal, I have to go and do a really hard workout. That's not it. Okay, I want you to think about movement is what is going to help your inflammation. It's going to help your stress by raising your endorphins,
Yeah.
happy hormones. Okay, we want that to happen. But the thing is, it's also making those deposits for your health span. You're going to be known as someone that moves, that goes outside, that gets a workout in. And that's what you want to do now, starting now, so that in 20, 30, 60 years down the road, you're still doing that and you're able to continue to do that. But you don't need hours of movement. You really just need what's going to help your body. And the thing is, if you are in a high stress, you have a high stress job, or you're not getting much sleep, maybe a really intense workout is not going to help you, okay? Because again, exercise does add stress to your life or to your body, and you don't want to just continually pile it on. So listen to your body. Maybe it is 20 minutes of yoga. Maybe it's, I don't do this, but do you ever dance in your living room?
No.
Okay. We don't do that, but some people I think do.
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it. That's what makes you tick.
But the thing is, intentional movement. Get off the couch. Go. Don't say you don't have time. You always have time to get some movement in. And one of the best times to get a walk in is after a meal. After you take a meal in, it helps your digestive system. Go for a 10, 15-minute walk outside. Leave your phone at home and enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah. On that same note, I heard Christy and I are big podcast people, and I heard somebody talking about nightly habits, and it was actually about alcohol, but they were saying to replace that time at night with something else like movement. And if you're on a walk, you are not hungry, you are not thinking about what you're going to snack on, that's when you're sitting on the couch. So make it a daily habit. I always challenge patients, like pick 3 days a week that you're at least going to do intentional exercise to start with, and do it for a month, and then it will become a habit.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that anti-inflammatory diet. So as Christy said, and we know this, but I think we've heard it, but we really don't know the why behind it, and we truly are what we eat. And so food is one of the most immediate ways that we communicate with our biology. So what we eat directly impacts our body systems. And so we can heal our body with what we're eating, or we can completely add fuel to just stoke that inflammation fire. And so the anti-inflammatory diet is not about deprivation by any means. So think about the Whole30. If any of y'all are familiar with Whole30, so the goal is really that you are eating those single ingredient foods as close to the ground as you can, just like what Christy said. So you can eat a lot of blueberries or a lot of green leafy vegetables. It's not about deprivation or calorie restriction. It's about what you're actually eating. And so you want to focus on several kind of food groups. So one thing that decreases inflammation is those leafy green cruciferous vegetables. So cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those are very anti-inflammatory. Also deeply colored fruits like berries, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. Foods rich in omega-3, so that's going to be like your fish, your nuts, walnuts, salmon, sardines, chia seeds, or a favorite of Christy's. Healthy fats like avocado, olive oil, coconut, and then anti-inflammatory spices like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon. So I'm going to put this little plug in here too because it's a common question. So oftentimes patients ask about food sensitivities. They want to do IgG testing and look at different food sensitivities. And although there can be a place for that, nothing really takes the place of an elimination diet. So back to the Whole30. Whole30 is you eat those whole foods for 30 days, you eliminate all the processed things, and then you reintroduce. And so this costs nothing. It just requires planning on your part, but you eliminate those processed inflammatory foods. And even some of them aren't processed foods, but there are some foods that are more inflammatory than others, and we can do a deep dive into that another time. And then you reintroduce and you see how your body handles it. Maybe the eczema flares, maybe the joint pain flares when you eat something. And so that is cheap, it's effective, it's personalized, and it doesn't require lab testing. So it's just as important that we reduce those processed, refined sugars, carbs, trans fat, the seed oils, the packaged, ultra processed, avoid excess alcohol, which we may do a deep dive in that. Alcohol does so many things to our body. And then gluten. So gluten and dairy are the top two inflammatory food groups. And Another thing that I see so commonly is patients will ask to do celiac testing, and we'll do it and they're negative. Well, God didn't intend for us to eat gluten, and so bottom line is, just because you're negative for celiac disease does not mean that gluten doesn't inflame you. So it's the first thing that I tell people to eliminate. If they have eczema, if they have gut issues, really none of us should eat gluten, and that is what is in processed starches and carbs, but definitely an inflammatory trigger.
Yeah. Okay, so gluten. This is so true. I'm going to give you a testimony about myself and everything else. So a lot of times I see patients, and I don't see patients, I see clients, and every time I go somewhere and they find out I'm a trainer or they haven't seen me in years, they're like, Christy, are you still a trainer? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, how do I get rid of my gut? Always. How do I get rid of my gut? And my mind immediately goes to food. They feel bloated after eating. They've got brain fog. They've got joint health. They've got it used to be called a beer belly. I've heard a gluten belly. Now it's like an inflammatory belly.
Sure.
It is turning into this thing of just having all of this inflammation in our belly, and it's not good. Again, root of health issues is right there. And another thing is, like she said about gluten, I did a strict Whole30 in March. I enjoy doing that myself. It's just removing things, because things are sneaky. They do get into your world. And, you know, there's balance. I like to go eat chips and hot sauce every now and then too. And my body wasn't feeling good. And I was telling her during a run, I was like, my knees are hurting. Why are my knees hurting? And I was like, oh, ate some bread the other night at dinner, or maybe ate some chips and hot sauce with my husband. And I was like, okay. So I did, and a lot of you guys saw that I did a fast. I eliminated things, because I know that if I do a fast, I'm eliminating things, I'm doing a reset of my body. And went out and ran today, and I was saying it to all my campers, I was like, I feel good. I feel good, because I got control of my inflammation before it got control of me.
I think that's so key, because we don't even know how good we should feel. And that first step is hard because it can kind of seem insurmountable. But once you take that step and you see the benefits of the reduced inflammation, then it spurs you along to go, okay, I can do this.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about some biomarkers that help us measure inflammation. So although we said, hey, labs aren't everything, there are still some key labs that we can do that give us a good picture. And knowledge is power. Some people need the biometrics to then have the motivation. I see that all the time in practice, that we feel a little bit more empowered if we can see the data. And so at Grace Wellness, we definitely use those biomarkers to get a clear picture of inflammation and metabolic health too. So C-reactive protein. So this is a protein that's made in the liver, but it is a marker of just systemic inflammation. And so it can be high for a lot of different reasons, but the goal is that we want it to be normal. So if it's high, it flags us to evaluate different things in your world that could be making it high. Homocysteine is kind of along those same lines. So higher values of homocysteine are linked to cardiovascular disease, cognitive risk, dementia, Alzheimer's, and that's a key component of DNA detox. So we look at that. Another test that really is probably underutilized by the average primary care provider is fasting insulin levels. So this is the very first biomarker that you can see to become elevated when somebody's becoming insulin resistant. So way before your hemoglobin A1C or your fasting blood sugar is elevated, that fasting insulin level can be elevated. So we really want that number to be under 5. And that is completely within your power and control based on what you're eating. And then the hemoglobin A1C is a 3-month glucose average. We use that test all the time also. And then cortisol. So this is like a buzzword. It's the TikTok buzzword. And so patients ask all the time, will you check my cortisol? So this is my cortisol answer. So your cortisol fluctuates throughout the whole day. So if you are healthy, your cortisol is high in the morning. That's what gets you out of bed, gets you moving, and then it curves down through the day. So if we check your cortisol at one single point in time during the day, it really does not tell us anything. So you can do like a 4-point salivary test that tests through the whole day, and it's a little pricey. I usually tell people, hey, do all the things to decrease stress and inflammation. Maybe take an adaptogenic herbal supplement, which we'll talk about, and work on decreasing your cortisol. But what your cortisol is right now doesn't really need to be measured. And then heart rate variability. So we all wear gadgets, rings, and watches, and all the things. And so this is something that's readily available. It's a real-time window into the nervous system balance, and it measures the time between heartbeats. It can be an indicator of chronic inflammation. It's tied to that fight or flight response. And so when we're in that fight or flight mode, it decreases our heart rate variability. And then finally, vitamin D. So vitamin D is like the sunshine vitamin, but a lot of us don't synthesize vitamin D like we should because of our food chain, because of our soil, because of because all the processed foods. And so that's a key player in immune system health, immune modulation, and inflammation.
Yeah, so I mean, foods are so important, but the food is not what it used to be. The ground that the food is coming from is not filled with the minerals that it used to be filled with. So we do suggest taking some supplements. We both take supplements. And one of the first ones that we say for inflammation is omega-3s. And that's because when I talked about seed oils, that's an omega-6. And omega-6 aren't bad in small portions, but the ratio that omega-6 to omega-3 should be is a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, so but the sad thing is, in the standard American diet, which is very sad, the ratio now is about an average of 10 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. And so we're out of balance. Our body is not thriving in that not homocysteine level. What's that word?
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis,
Yeah.
that's the word.
Great
And
grace.
so, great grace. I make up words sometimes. And so we want to get into that place of balance where that ratio is more in balance. And so we bring in omega-3s to counteract all the omega-6s. And also, like she said, curcumin, turmeric, guys, it's turmeric, is good. But one thing to say about that one is if you add a little black pepper, it actually helps your body digest a little bit better. Here's a little quick tip for you. Magnesium. Magnesium at night, most of us are walking around magnesium deficient, and our cells utilize, it is one of the most utilized minerals in our body. And there are so many different forms of magnesium, but magnesium will calm you in the evening. It actually helps you sleep with your cortisol regulations. Vitamin D. It is essential for immune health. So like she said, a lot of us are walking around deficient in vitamin D. Probiotics. So you've got that gut that is inflamed. So we need to feed it some good microbiomes. So taking some probiotics is also a good thing for you. So whether your mindset, it's your movement, it's your meals, or even your breath, you've got the power to shift things. You're not stuck. Remember, it's never too late. You've got tools. We're trying to give information to you. Inflammation does not have the final say. You do. At Grace Wellness and Breaking Barriers, we walk with you through the healing journey. But we want to give you, we don't want you to be fearful of this. We want to give you clarity. We want to give you that path and hope that you can get past this. Your body wants to heal. And our job is to remove the barriers and support the process.
So don't forget that real transformation is not about this huge overhaul. It's the day-to-day decision. And it really just starts with that first decision, and then you reap the benefits, and then you make the next best decision. And you'll see the consistent healing that those choices can bring. And so keep breaking barriers. We're going to talk about a few question answers posted on both our social media accounts. And so we'll tackle those topics.
Yeah. So the first one is, what is your thoughts on castor oil packs? I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And we might do a deep dive.
But that's considered under the topic of a detox.
Yeah.
So that is
inflammation detox in its entirety.
Detox is a good.
That's a good topic. Another question was, what do we think about parasite cleanses? And Christy really loves parasite cleanses, so we're gonna tackle that too. And artificial sweeteners. So such a good question there is, what should we do in the area of artificial sweeteners? And artificial sweeteners are endocrine disruptors. So they completely disrupt hormones and endocrine balance and can really be bad. And they're controversial.
It is very controversial.
Yeah, because the question was, do I do the real Dr. Pepper or the diet Dr. Pepper? The answer is you do neither.
I like that answer.
Yeah, you just
It's a little
neither.
aggressive.
Yeah, but if you were going to use the artificial sweetener, we would lean more towards a plant-based sweetener like stevia, that kind of thing. But yeah, controversial. I mean, big headache trigger. You know, there's so many things that you can feel from those artificial sweeteners, physical manifestations.
It's not good for your gut microbiome, guys.
Yeah,
it's really not good.
Not at all.
Fasting. How do you feel about fasting? That is a topic of its own. I believe it has a time and a place, so we will definitely address that in a later topic.
Yeah, so another question, how can endurance exercises combat elevated liver enzymes? So 8 out of 10 Americans has fatty liver, and it is directly correlated with the American diet. So the direction I would go with that question is that a low-fat diet reducing your overall body fat is going to combat liver enzymes. And elevated liver enzymes are also part of insulin resistance, so that all kind of ties along that pathway. So bottom line is endurance exercises are good. Any type of movement is going to be positive towards your overall health and those biomarkers that we look at.
And last question was, how do you combat stress with a stressful job and lack of sleep? It's hard. I know that we have to make a living, and some jobs are very stressful, and that is where it comes into play where I said maybe take it away and doing some deep breaths. Maybe download a meditation app and try to get to a corner or somewhere and do a meditation. It helps. Try to get out of that sympathetic and put your body in parasympathetic. And one of the best things I can tell you is, what are you saying yes to? If you have opportunities to say no, to give your time some time back in your world so that you're not taking care of everybody else and not taking care of yourself, maybe address what are you saying yes to? Maybe you need to say no to some things in life. If you have that ability.
Yeah, that can be very convicting for all of us, but so many times we just have to kind of reevaluate priorities and look at that and how it applies to health. Mm-hmm. And we consistently say that it's okay to be a little selfish for yourself, to be a snob for yourself. 100%. And we see that so often with moms, just because they prioritize everybody else. Yeah. And so it is that day-to-day first best decision. And that's what really matters. So we're so excited to be here with Grit and Grace, and we have some exciting things coming even next week that we'll come to you with, some of our goals and challenges and those things. So we look forward to bringing you more podcasts like this. So hope you all have a good day. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.